You are welcome to chemistry class. Today we shall be discussing about chemical kinetics. Chemical kinetics is talking about the rate of reaction. How do we get some particular products in chemistry? So there are some reaction that we mix together. There are some compounds we mix together. So we mix these compounds together. They call them reactants to give our product. Okay, so let's come with me. Now, chemical kinetics is the branch of physical chemistry that studies the rates of chemical reaction and provide information about the reaction mechanism. The reaction mechanism is talking about how the reaction is proceeding till the final product is gotten. Now, rate of chemical reaction can be defined as the speed at which reaction proceeds. Defined as the speed at which reaction proceeds. Now, before reaction proceed or before reaction comes together to form products, there should be a kind of collision between the reactant particles. The reactant particles are the chemicals that are coming together to give us another product. Okay, so we call them the reactant. Now, let's talk about the collision theory. Collision theory enlightens us more about our reactants and how we can get our products. Now, this theory assumes that there must be collision between the reactant particles. It means that we have a kind of substance A and a substance B colliding to get the substance C and the substance D. That's what the collision theory is talking about. Before any reaction can occur, the reactant particles must collide with one another to give a product. Okay. Now, only small fraction of this collision leads to what's now a chemical reaction. Does not necessarily mean that all the reactant particles must collide. No, it's just only the small fraction of this collision that leads to what's now the reaction. Now, this small fraction is called an effective collision. Particles can collide and it may not be effective, but the one that leads to a reaction, a chemical reaction, is what we know as what's now an effective collision. Now, the minimum amount of energy that the reactant particle must overcome for a chemical reaction to occur is called what's now the activation energy. Now, this activation energy is like a mountain. The reactant particles must what's now overcome. They will climb a mountain down to form a final product. And this activation energy is also known as an energy barrier. Activation energy is also known as an energy barrier. It's just a barrier the reactant particles must face and overcome before a product can be formed. Okay, this means that before reaction can occur, the energy of the colliding particles. Now, this collision between reactant particles is happening because they need energy to overcome the activation energy or the energy barrier for the products to be formed. And so the colliding particles for the reactant particle, the colliding particles for the reactant must be what's now greater than the activation energy. This is very, very important before chemical reaction take place and get a product. Now, an activation complex is the state by which an intermediate product is formed. Now, one thing is when you start a process and you are halfway through, you will know that you are halfway through. So by this, when reaction is also happening and the reaction is about 50% to completion, what you will be having then is what we know as activation complex or activated complex. No, now so this activation complex is just an intermediate between the reactant and the what's now the product. Okay, so now this chart we are seeing here is talking about how reaction proceeds to get the final product. Now, this reaction, this graph we are seeing here is for an endothermic reaction. There are two types of reaction: endothermic reaction and exothermic reaction. Now, this is endothermic reaction because heat is absorbed from the system, heat is absorbed from the system, and if heat is absorbed from the system, then you are going to have a positive H. Delta H here means enthalpy change. Now it means that the change in energy between the reactant particles and the product, so the final energy given must be positive, and this is known as what now? Endothermic what now? Reaction. So now for an endothermic reaction, the energy in the product must be bigger than that of the reactant to be able to have a positive delta H, which is an enthalpy change. Now this EA means activation energy. Now I told us earlier that the reactant particle must pass through a mountain. You climb through a mountain to overcome this activation energy, then to form the final product. At this stage, then you activated activation complex. So at this stage, if an intermediate product is being formed, and when you get to this place, let me say 75% assurance that you will get a product. Now, for the exothermic reaction, we have a negative delta H. This is talking about an heat being released to the system or to the surrounding, and heat being released to the surrounding. So it means that the heat energy present in the reactant particles is greater than that of the product, and that's why we're having the negative delta H, which is our enthalpy change. Enthalpy change means the change in energy between the reactant and the product. Okay, so now for the graph for exothermic reaction, we should have it in our mind that the energy, the position of the reactant must be bigger than that of the product. The position of the reactant must be bigger than that of the product, but the other way around happens for endothermic reaction. For endothermic reaction, the position of the reactant is lower than compared to that of the product. This means that the product is bigger. The energy in the product is bigger than that of the reactant, and this is bigger compared to that of the product here. And here we also have what's our activation energy. Activation energy is just a kind of barrier that this reactant particle must overcome before the product can be formed. And at this stage, when our reactant particles get to this stage, it means we are about 50% completion to the final product. Now, there are some factors that affect the rate of reaction. One, you have catalysts. Number two, we have light. Number three, we have concentration. Number four, we have physical nature of the reactant. It's very, very important. Number five, we have temperature. 6, we have surface area of the reactant exposed. Number 7, we have pressure. Now, let's pick this one after the other. We have catalysts. A catalyst is a substance that alters the rate of the reaction but remain unchanged at the end of the reaction. What does this statement mean? It means it can either speed up or slow down the rate of the chemical reaction. Now, but the catalyst does not take part in the process of the reaction, but will just either speed up the reaction or slow it down. And this happens by lowering the activation energy. It lowers the activation energy for easy reaction to take place to get our final product. Because some reactions are very slow. Oxidation of diamond can take years. So this is a kind of reaction we don't need to wait for years before we get our product. So we use a catalyst to speed up the reaction. On the other way around, if the reaction is too fast, we can use a catalyst to slow it down too, so it alters the rate of the chemical reaction. And some of the reaction that uses catalyst is given on the board: oxidation of sulfur oxide. This is an intermediate process in the Cotard process, a process where you make sulfuric acid using vanadium 5 oxide as the catalyst. So SO2 here reacts with oxygen in the presence of vanadium 5 oxide to produce SO3, sulfur trioxide. Then hydrogen reacts with hydrogen reacts with nitrogen to give ammonia. Now this uses a fine divided ion. A fine divided ion is used as a catalyst for easy production of ammonia. Now this chart we are seeing here is talking about what with the presence of a catalyst, there's a kind of alteration in the activation energy that is taking place for both the exothermic reaction and the endothermic reaction. And what does that mean? It means that there's a lower activation energy taking place, as our E-A2 means activation energy that happens after we have used our catalyst. Our EA signifies the activation energy before the usage of what now a catalyst. So you can see this one is longer compared to this. So this is talking about how low the activation energy can be when we have used our catalyst, and how high the activation energy can be when we do not use a catalyst. So we still have, for the exothermic reaction, our reactant energy is bigger than the product, so the change in enthalpy is going to give us a negative delta H, and so we have an exothermic reaction. So here the change in energy between the product and the reactant will give us a positive delta H for endothermic reaction. And so the same thing happens when we use the catalyst. This EA2 signifies that our activation energy is now being lowered as a result of the usage of catalyst. But here, this is how high the activation energy can be when we do not use a catalyst. So with this, we can easily get our products. Now there are some characteristics of catalyst. Number one, a catalyst alter a rate of reaction, can either speed it up or slow it down. Number two, they are specific in reaction. Yes, the kind of job a catalyst will do in a reaction is what a catalyst will do in a reaction. It does not do more than that. And it should be noted that we do not use a catalyst that will react to the reactant. We should not use a catalyst that will react to the reactant. Why? Because it will not do the job. It's just going to go into the reaction. So we should be mindful of that. Then, but three, they do not affect the product. They do not affect the product. They just either slow the reaction rate or either increase the reaction speed or slow it down. Number four, they remain unchanged at the end of the reaction. At the end of the reaction, we get our catalyst back, because the catalyst is not reacting with anything. It's not reacting with anything, so it is inert in that environment. It is unreactive in that environment. At the end of the reaction, we should be able to get our catalyst back. Number two factors that affect the rate of reaction is light. Some reactions are influenced by light, and they are called photocatalytic reaction. Some reactions are influenced by light, and they are called photocatalytic reaction. Now, such a reaction that is influenced by light, this example is our photosynthesis. Without light, photosynthesis cannot occur. So photosynthesis uses light for the process of the reaction. Also, our substitution method for our saturated alkane. Our substitution method for our saturated alkane in our organic chemistry. Substitution method or substitution reaction uses UV light as a catalyst for their reaction for us to get our product. The example is when a methane reacts with chlorine to get chloromethane, dichloromethane, trichloromethane, and tetrachloromethane. Okay, now, so the next one is concentration. Increase in concentration increases the frequency of collision. Do not forget that in our collision theory, that there must be an effective collision between the reactant particles for a product to be formed. And so, because of that, the concentration increase in concentration increases the frequency of collision, and because of the increase in frequency of collision increases the reaction rate, and therefore to get our final product cannot be far-fetched. Now, this is very important in terms of the nature of the reactant. Now, I'm going to explain this based on an experimental point of view. Now, if you have an ion and you had an ion with dilute acid, there's going to be a slow evolution of hydrogen gas. There's going to be a slow evolution of hydrogen gas, but with zinc, there's going to be rapid or fast evolution of hydrogen gas. But for gold, there's not going to be evidence of reaction. There's not going to be evidence of reaction, and this is as a result of the words that the nature of the reactant, the nature of this ion when it's reacting with hydrogen chloride, the nature of zinc when it's reacting with hydrogen chloride, dilute hydrogen chloride, and the nature of gold when it's reacting with dilute hydrogen chloride. And this is as a result of the words now the reacting particle, and so it will determine what you are going to get at the end of the product. Okay, so now the temperature, increase in temperature also increases the what now the frequency of collision, because at every 1 degree rise in temperature, the rate of reaction doubles, and when the rate of reaction doubles, it means that the frequency of collision has gotten increased, and because of that, we're going to have a product easily. Now, area exposed. This is also very, very important, because this I can also explain this from the experimental point of view. Now, when you have a sawdust and a log of wood, and you set the both ablaze, now the log of wood is not going to burn faster compared to the sawdust. Why? This is as a result of the area exposed. The area exposed to heat for the sawdust is higher compared to that of the log of wood, and because of that, the sawdust burn faster compared to the log of wood. And this, we are coming to the end of this section, chemical kinetics. Until next time, bye.